Okay, good morning, everybody. This is McGraw-Hill. When we're in classrooms, you know, the teachers usually say good morning, and what do we say back? Ah, there we go. Okay. How polite. How polite. Good morning. I'm Glenn Goldberg. I'm president of McGraw-Hill Information and Media, which is home to Business Week, our ABC affiliates in San Diego, Denver, Indianapolis, and Bakersfield. I guess I should have said that in front of Bob Iger yesterday instead of Les, but that's a whole other conversation. As well as our business information properties, which include J.D. Power and Associates, Platts, McGraw-Hill Construction, and Aviation Week and Space Technology. I'm pleased that with our partner, Digital Hollywood, we've been able to keep this conversation going now for 5 years, and I'm pleased to see so much interest in this conference. Thanks again for joining us. As Keith Fox did yesterday, I too want to lend my thanks to all our speakers, to our attendees, and of course to our sponsors. The Media Summit's agenda provides a window on the changes that continue to sweep through the media landscape and highlights the convergence of media models and technology across markets and across customer segments. Like never before, the people we employ and the tools that we provide must work together seamlessly to serve our customers. At the same time, our relationship with our customers does grow more complex. Issues of measurement, advertising accountability, digital rights management continue to be challenging. Many of these issues were discussed yesterday, and many are on the docket today in both the plenary and the breakout sessions. Of course, we've also seen an enormous change in the underlying business climate since we met last year. Capital is no longer widely available, to say the least. And digital advertising has shown itself subject to some of the pressures we've seen in traditional advertising models. But unlike the bubble that burst in 2000-2001, some have credited new media and technology for providing a stabilizing influence on the economy. Yesterday we heard from Bob Iger about how Disney is addressing the enormous opportunities and challenges of digitization and personalization. And today we're delighted that another respected and leading voice in the media community has agreed to join us. LesMoonves, President and CEO of CBS, will shortly join Steve Adler, Business Week Editor-in-Chief, CEO, that would be a good promotion, huh? In a dialogue that I hope will be both interesting and, I believe, provocative. I really want to thank Les for taking the time to join us today. Certainly last year's discussion between Steve and Rupert Murdoch yielded some interesting tidbits that later in the year played out, including, obviously, the acquisition of Dow Jones and its launch of the Fox Business Channel. Parenthetically, as you know, the other keynote speaker last year was actually Barry Diller, who I suspect would rather be with us today than in a Delaware courtroom, but that's a subject for another day. So I do want to turn things over to Steve in just a second, and let's see where the conversation leads with he and LesMoonves. Steve has a long and distinguished career in history, in journalism, and as a manager. He has been Business Week's editor-in-chief for 3 years and has played a central role in the evolution of our franchise from a weekly magazine to a truly diversified multi-platform brand worldwide. Most recently, he led the relaunch of the magazine, incorporating a bolder, cleaner design and navigation. Of course, we hope you like it. But he also worked to integrate our editorial teams across the globe and across platforms in ways that better serve our customers. Steve's a graduate of Harvard Law School and held key posts at American Lawyer and at the Wall Street Journal before joining us. Between 1995 and 1999, he led 3 teams that won Pulitzer Prizes. Today, as Business Week's editor-in-chief, he directs a world-class team of professionals and creative professionals who provide a vital lens on the matters that are really important to business professionals and individual managers all across the globe. So it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Adler.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for the promotion. I appreciate it. I'm afraid I'm going to have to turn it down because my job is too exciting. On behalf of Business Week, I'd also like to add my welcome to all of you this morning. Each year, we participate in hosting the Media Summit in order to explore the landscape of media, entertainment, and technology. And LesMoonves has made his mark on that landscape really like very few others. His creative brilliance and really winning track record has made him famous in Hollywood and beyond as the man with the golden gut. While at Warner Brothers, he greenlighted Friends and ER. While at CBS, he helped launch the reality craze with Survivor. That was the summer of 2000, and my family, we call it the lost summer because we were absolutely obsessed with the silly thing, and it's gone on and on. After taking over at CBS, he led the network to an amazing last-to-first revival. He's also pioneered new distribution methods, which we'll certainly talk about today, for the network's content, aggressively pushing into such terrain as the internet and cable video on demand. Leslie is, of course, a former actor, and he now plays an especially demanding role, that of running a mass media company in an era of great transformation. He's got to grapple with the future of network television, of film, of radio, and even book publishing as the world goes digital. And this season, for the first time in 6 years, his TV network is poised, he may not agree, to slip from #1 to #2 in the ratings wars. But he still believes content is king, and he still loves a good battle. When we named him to Business Week's list of best and worst managers, in case you're wondering, he was one of the best managers. Otherwise, I wouldn't have mentioned it. This is what he told us, quote, "Anyone who's ever succeeded in one of these network jobs is competitive. If you're not, you should be in another job." His job, of course, is President and Chief Executive Officer of CBS Corporation. Please join me in welcoming Leslie Moonves.
Thank you, Steve.
Have a seat.
That would be good to put somebody on the worst list and then have them come up here. That would be an interesting thing. I would like that. I mean, I wouldn't like being on the worst list, but I would like to see that.
Some year we may try that. I want to start out by asking you, what's the best thing that's happened at CBS this year, in the past 12 months?
I think the best thing is what we have done about, and it's a word that Glenn mentioned, which is convergence. We talk about our company, and it's become a cliche now, that we're a company that's driving on the freeway at 60 miles an hour and changing the tires at the same time. And by that I mean we have to operate our businesses. We have to operate our networks, our television stations, our radio stations, our outdoor company, our publishing company. But at the same time, we have to be aware of what's going on with digital convergence. And in every single one of these businesses, we're running our businesses as top speed, but by the same token, we're looking forward and we're looking at the digital space as additive to our core businesses. So if anybody would say, what is the most exciting thing about CBS today is, I think we are successfully in every single one of those divisions doing the conversion while continuing to do our core business as best we can.
Okay, and of course that was just a setup question for the real journalist question, which is, what's your biggest liability?
What's my biggest liability? People view our company in a way that we don't think is quite fair. It's an easy label to say CBS is an old media company, and we think nothing could be further from the truth. When you look at every single one of our businesses, from changing the outdoor business to a digital business, where there are digital boards all over the city, and that advertising model has changed drastically, to the fact that we're taking 17,000 titles from Simon & Schuster and putting them online, to the fact that we just made a deal with AOL, where every single one of our radio stations, all 139 of them, you can sit at your desk and get it streamed to you, and we're collecting advertising for it. So we wish the view of CBS was as a company that does things right, but is also clearly moving towards the future. And what amazes me as a CEO is when they want to blame a company or they want to blame an economy, there's an assumption that we're sitting on our hands and saying, oh, woe is me, the economy is challenged, and we're going to do nothing about it. We are proactive with every single one of our businesses. If there's a downturn in the economy, and clearly there is, and it affects some of our businesses at their fringe, and mostly in smaller markets with radio and television stations, we do things to change it. We know how to manage our business, and I think management of your business is a really important thing to do. Mm-hmm. And when judging companies, there are a lot of guys who know how to lose with a full house. It's when you don't have a great hand and you know how to win, that's the guys I want to bet on. And that's how I look at us.
Before we get into the economy, which I'd like to do, are you happy that your average TV viewer, talk about old media, is kind of an old guy, older person? Does that concern you? I'm thinking they're not as old as I am at this point,
right.
but by the demographics you generally look at, they're really quite old.
From the time I came to CBS in 1995, we have been the oldest skewing of the four networks. We are to this very day. The only difference is we're now winning in an awful lot of the categories. You know, one of the misnomers, and I've been dealing with this for 15 years, which is one of the silliness of the network business, is that an 18-year-old is considered more important than a 50-year-old in terms of advertising dollars, in terms of discretionary revenue. I remember one of my competitors at their upfront presentation talked about the 18 to 34-year-old upscale demographic. And I said, the only 18 to 34 upscale I know are my children. And they come to me before they want to buy a car because they can't afford it themselves without me helping them. So it's like a bullshit demographic. Forgive me. It really is. And the 50-year-old is thrown in the garbage, and some of my competitors don't even mention them. Look, the average age viewer of 60 Minutes is 61 years old, and we make a lot of money on that show.
But your average correspondent is 80, so it's so it skews young. But
I am sending Mike Wallace to knock on your door next week. You know, the old line, one of the worst 5 words in the English languages. Mike Wallace is at your door.
Right.
Is that 5 words? Yeah, something like.
Okay, but seriously, because it's a very interesting point, I think, for this audience also. I think the argument is that people who are older have become set in their brand choices, and they're not making fresh brand choices.
That's one of the great old wives' tale that has been going on for 30 years. And we have proof that that doesn't exist. Frankly, right now, we sell over half our advertising for a 25 to 54-year-old demographic, which is somewhat older. But once again, the fact that people post 54 literally count for 0 at most networks.
Right.
Obviously, we sell 60 Minutes to an older demographic, and we sell it to financials, and we sell it to pharmaceuticals because older people need more medicine than younger people, which is a good thing. But it's a system we've been trying to change. Dave Poltrak writes a paper about it just about once a month. And when our 3 competitors are against it, because I don't think American Idol gets too many 55-year-olds. Actually, I think American Idol gets just about everybody, unfortunately. It's a different way of looking at the world, and we think it's unfair. We think the boomer is still where the money is. Yeah. And that's what we want to go to.
Of course, it's 80 million people, that cohort.
But that's
It's
right.
huge.
That's right. It's a big demographic.
Yeah.
That's ignored.
I've been interested, you've been speaking quite a bit recently, and you've been talking about the economy at every time you speak, and you've been consistently much more positive than most people have been. And I'm curious about that because essentially you're in a consumer business. Your customers are general consumers, and it's a mass market, and there aren't that many mass markets out there. And it seems the consumer is specifically who's getting crunched the hardest now. So why aren't you getting crunched as they are?
You know, look, our business is over 70% advertising, as we say. We are being affected by the slowdown in the economy. There's no question about it. Number one, the slowdown affects mostly smaller markets first, an area we're not into. We're big national brands. Our TV and radio stations are mostly in major markets. You know, they will be affected, but we're doing things to change that. We just don't sit here and say, oh my God, the economy is bad, therefore business will be terrible. We make adjustments to reflect that. You know, for us to sit here and say everything is hunky-dory with the economy is not true. It isn't. We all know it isn't. But to say there's ways to adjust how you operate your business, how you sell your business, there are cutbacks in some of the personnel that we have, in some of the cost structure, and we are able to manage it. You know, there are some in the content business, which is a lot of what we do, that say the content business is recession-proof. I don't quite buy that 100% because it isn't 100% recession-proof. Having said that, it is less affected by this than an awful lot of things. And if we continue to produce the top quality content that we do, we will still get what we want. As you look at this economy, the NCAA basketball tournament, just about 100% sold out, way before it was a year ago. Fox got $2.7 million for a 30-second spot in the Super Bowl. That doesn't sound like in a lot of places the economy is that bad, you know. Scatter market pricing way up from the upfront. So while it's dumb to ignore the fact that there is a slowdown in the economy, the sky is not falling.
Yeah. I mean, it's been conventional wisdom in the media business that people want to diversify away from advertising. And you've said you're 72% advertising. Many of your people we would think of as your competitors have diversified more than that. You look at Time Warner, you look at Disney, you look at News Corp. Do you think having that level of advertising is actually a virtue as opposed to?
Steve, I don't think they've diversified more. That was their makeup. That's their core DNA. An issue I have is once again lumping groups together, the media companies. You know, Bob Iger, who's here yesterday, is a very dear friend of mine. So obviously during the strike, we were talking just about every day. He's 22% advertising, something like that, and 45% theme parks or something like that. We don't have theme parks. So they're really very, very different businesses. Yeah, part of the downturn, part of the concern about us is it is advertising based. Therefore, the economy's down, advertising's down. Once again, when you examine it very closely, our national brands are not down terribly. Automobiles are down, but they're down across the board because the auto industry is hurting right now. While they're down, there are other categories that are doing better. Pharmaceuticals are doing better. Retail down. So as everything goes on, you have to, once again, play the hand you're dealt. The certain categories go down. You know, we are very advertising based. We believe in advertising, and we're able to change our systems, you know, to a certain degree to what is happening with the economy, with advertising sales. We just don't sit here and say, woe is me, oh no, our company is going to do badly, because we're not.
A couple of trends in advertising clearly are both towards moving towards more targeted advertising, following the targeted customer, and at least in the network, you're sort of doing much more of a mass market play. And another thing that worries people in the advertising business is the whole concept of disintermediation, that advertisers are finding ways through contests and events and other kind of techniques to communicate directly with their customer. Since you're in such an advertising-heavy business and one that relies on the mass market more than many, I'm very interested in your thoughts on what's the future of advertising? What's going to look like 5 or 10 years from now?
The future of advertising, obviously, it's growing on the internet quite a bit. Conventional wisdom started out saying advertising on the web, on the internet, will take away from other forms of advertising. Number one, that hasn't been proven yet. Number two, the things that will hurt, forgive me, primarily will be print initially, then possibly radio a little bit, and television stations somewhat in smaller markets. We look at the revenue that we're getting online, and our revenue last year with online advertising was north of $200 billion, growing 30 to 40% this year. That's just advertising revenue. That's not all our revenue online because there's obviously subscription fees and VOD fees, but it is growing greatly without affecting our other forms of advertising.
And you're seeing that growth rate continue into 08?
08, 09.
Because it slowed overall.
No, it's definitely going to be up that much in 08 for us. And we view it as additive, not subtractive. And once again, when we go and sell something like the NCAA basketball tournament, or we sell a Survivor or a CSI, most advertisers want to participate in both. You know, and they haven't slowed down their network buy, and it's additive in most cases, which is a good thing. So as we look down the road a piece, and we say clearly there's going to be a lot more advertising online, we view it as a positive for us. Some other companies may not feel that way when their programming is more targeted. We're more of a mass market, mass media. So ultimately, we like to say, okay, you want to buy for national, we got that. We got a number of hits that get, CSI gets 25 million people a week. If you want to buy local, we have billboards, we have radio, we have television stations. If you want to get down to targeted individual advertising, which clearly is where some of these places are hit, we're very strong online, and we can do that too. So our pitch as an advertising company and a content company is, if you have $1 to spend, we could spend the whole dollar for you. And we could show how it will fit best with our CBS properties without having to go anywhere else.
Okay, one more advertising question before we move on. I'm really intrigued with the outdoor market. A lot of people seem to be taking that seriously. It's quite small, but growing quickly. How big do you see that becoming?
It's not that small. It's 20% of our revenue and our OIBDA. Look,
really? Okay.
when I'm an old TV guy, as you know, and when the outdoor group first was put under my watch about 5 years ago, I said, what is this? Where is the future of it? Now it's our fastest growing, division. The amount of digital advertising that's now going on, the amount of boards we're now manufacturing. You get a chance, go look at that cube at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. That's ours. The amount of new ways that you can advertise by the 5-second spot, the 30-second spot. We just concluded a deal which we found very interesting with a large auto manufacturer where they bought 5 large digital billboards in 5 different cities. They will operate it themselves out of Detroit. And what they will do is from 7 to 9 in the morning, they'll target 24 to 30-year-old working guys, who are on their way to work. Later on, they'll change that and target it to, the soccer mom's car. And they can change it by the day, by the minute, by the hour. It's a 5-year deal for many millions of dollars. And the only thing we have to pay for is electricians to make sure the light bulbs are working. So labor costs are down. It's a very effective way of advertising. So for an old TV guy, I have fallen in love with the outdoor business. I think it's a great model. I think it's going to keep growing. It's the oldest form of advertising there is. We like to say it started with some guy drawing something in a cave that he was selling meat. And now it's these digital boards, which you see in the major cities. You see it in the London Underground. You see it in the New York subways, which there's a lot of creative things you can do. We're combining content with advertising, which is something we do very well. So the future of outdoor advertising, which previously seemed like a pretty boring way to go, is now very, very exciting. Very exciting.
Okay. Let's switch a little bit to some corporate stuff. You're sitting on a lot of cash now, right? $2 billion in cash.
Correct.
And I think if we were talking a year ago, you or CEOs of big companies would be lamenting that prices of products of companies they liked were really high because private equity was sweeping in and running up the price. That's no longer the case.
Correct.
So are you actively out there looking for acquisitions?
No question about it. No question about it. Look, our powder is dry. We have a couple of $2 billion worth of cash. Our capital structure is such that we have increased our dividend 4 or 5 times in 2 years, where it's a fairly healthy dividend. That will obviously continue and be an important part of who we are and what our future is. By the same token, we look at a lot of things. We look at everything. The prices over the last couple of years have been absurd. There were times when we said, gee, these are great assets. And there were a couple in specific, and we said, the prices are absurd. And I think the people who bought those things today might agree very much with that philosophy.
Give us a couple of examples of ones you liked that went for too much money.
Univision, company that we would have liked. We would have liked that company very much. It would have fit with what we did. It's a network. It's stations. It's radio stations. It has retrans coming up. Good management, advertising. We think it could have combined with us very well. The Spanish market's improving. It's still a great asset run by very smart guys. And Chaim Saban has made enough good deals where he's going to be fine. We don't have to worry about him. But the price was very high. We were in there. We looked at it very carefully, and the price was too high. That's not going to become available, but there will be other opportunities where our balance sheet is going to be of great benefit to us, where having this kind of cash and this lower debt ratio is going to be very effective to us. So there's going to be great opportunities now that didn't exist a year or 2 years ago. And as you said, one of the reasons is private equity. And some of the other companies do not have the pristine balance sheet that we do, where we have the flexibility to do that. So we feel like we're in a pretty good place having this much cash right now.
Any interest in Facebook?
Not for $15 billion. It's a pretty high price for a business that isn't really a core business to us. Look, we're looking primarily at content companies, we're looking at broadcasting companies, and we're looking at new media companies. That's our focus right now. The Wall Street community gets nervous when we mention the word acquisitions, and they assume it's going to be dilutive. That's not the case. We're looking for opportunities. We've been very conservative. We've made 3 acquisitions in the 2.5 years we've been in a standalone company. They've all been rather mid-sized to small. We're pleased with all 3 of them. But if the right thing comes along, we will look at it very carefully.
I've heard the Weather Channel mentioned. Are you interested in that?
We look at everything. The Weather Channel, they're showing to everybody in town. We're one of the people that they're showing it to. Depends on pricing. We don't know enough about it quite yet, what their subs are, et cetera. That's something that could fit. It's a content company. It's involved with some of the things we do. It would fit just like college sports television, fit with our sports portfolio. Interesting property.
So you sound pretty interested.
As I said, we look at absolutely everything.
Right.
By the way, you probably could run through the list of every media company in America and probably say the same thing. From Time Warner to News Corp to Disney to Viacom, I think everybody's kicking the tires. We do that on just about everything. There's rarely a sale of a media asset that we haven't taken a hard, strong look at.
Another possible use of your money, of course, is stock buybacks. And you were buying back stock in the low 30s. Stock's now in the low 20s. Argument would be, obviously, it's a much better buy in the low 20s than in the low 30s. So are you looking at another major push?
Yeah, philosophically, look, we were formed 2.5 years ago. We said, look, our primary goal is to be a dividend-paying company. That you can count on. Like death and taxes, you can count on a strong dividend. We've increased it quite a bit. We were able to sell some assets. We were selling our theme parks at a huge price. We were able to sell a number of radio and television stations at very high multiples, 14 to 15 times multiples. So we did 2 accelerated share repurchase programs, which are completed now. We don't think that's the right way to go. It was really, we had this excess cash from selling these properties that we felt should be put to that. I would rather invest in our business than buy back shares. And when I speak to analyst groups, it's very interesting. There's 1/3 that wants us to increase the dividend. There's 1/3 that wants us to buy back shares, and there's 1/3 that wants us to invest in our businesses. So no matter what decision we make, 2/3 of the people are going to be unhappy. So we've come to accept that there's going to be critics among our investors, among shareholders, among all sorts of different people on whatever we do. But I would like to build this business. We're very happy with the dividend we pay. We think it's a pretty good value that you're getting 25 cents a quarter or $1 a share a year. We did that so the people who aren't good at math could figure out what the dividend would be. You buy 1,000 shares, you get $1,000 at the end of the year of the dividend. We like that, but I'd like to build this company through natural causes as well as through a potential acquisition. As long as people realize, don't get crazy, I'm not going to do a dilutive acquisition. We're very conservative, but we're in a very good position financially to do some things.
You have an approach to content on the web that I think is a little different from some of your competitors, as I understand it. You want to be distributed broadly across a whole variety of outlets. You don't want to get locked into one.
Correct.
I don't think a lot of your competitors are deeply involved in Hulu now, and you're not. Talk to us a bit about what your thinking is on that, and also where does it go? Do you ultimately, is there a way to cut out the middleman ultimately altogether? Can you get directly to your customer?
Our philosophy is not as different as the people in Hulu are. It's different from Disney. You know, if you look at the four networks, primarily, you know, Fox and NBC put together this joint venture where they're basically aggregating content and sending it out, sort of similar to what we announced we were doing. We take our content, we want to syndicate it to as many places as we can, as many partners as we have. We have something like over 200 websites, from the big guys like AOL and Microsoft to little guys like Bebo and, you know, places like that. And our content is available, be it sports, be it news, be it entertainment. It's available on all those sites. You're going to see Hulu doing similar things. We like the fact that we are in control of our own content, where it goes. We are selling the advertising for these 200 sites. We're aggregating that. And, you know, we did have an opportunity to go with Hulu. We think it's a terrific idea. We think we can accomplish the same things by ourselves at better economic terms for us. By the way, we still might join with Hulu and put our content through Hulu because they have some terrific things they're doing. They're doing it in a very smart way. Disney has been very different. They've been a walled garden. The Disney brand is sacrosanct, as you heard from Bob, and they have a very different attitude towards it. And once again, we're in the infancy of this thing. So everybody's just starting these things, and there's going to be a lot of change. And it's, you know, I'm very excited about this plan. We call it the CBS Audience Network, which is the aggregation of these people on these sites. And there's many millions of people who are using it. And now we got to monetize it. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. Another thing you're doing on the web that's coming up, everybody I'm sure is already bookmarking it, is the March Madness, the streaming of the games. And I think it's kind of controversial in the workplace because it's taking up a lot of people's time.
Not among the workers, maybe among the bosses, but the workers seem to be pretty pleased with it, you know.
There's an article in USA Today, talking about it and how companies are planning to make it so that you can't get on it, and there's just a lot of concern about how much productivity it's taking away. But you're also making a lot of money on it, aren't you?
Well, we are. We made, you know, a few years back a 13-year deal on the NCAA basketball tournament. And part of our, you know, we had to reach to make the deal. We were competing with Fox at the time. And as you know, when Rupert wants something, there usually is not a price limit to what he will pay for something. So we were the ones who had the tournament, so we paid for it. And one of our philosophies was, all right, for the first few years, it may be rough to break even. But as the Internet becomes a bigger player, that's going to help us a great deal. So 3 years ago, we began with it's called March Madness On Demand, MMOD, which means you can get any game, anytime, anywhere. So if you're a UCLA fan and you live in New York City and you wouldn't normally get your game on CBS, you can get it on your computer. So it started out 3 years ago as a subscription model. We made $250,000 in revenue. The next year, we decided to go advertising based, which is how most of the Internet is going. We took in $4 million in advertising. The next year, we took in 10. And this year, we're going to have about $23 million in advertising, which fits right into our philosophy of what the Internet is. New revenue for content that we already are producing, that we already have. So it's money that, by and large, except for broadband costs, drops right to the bottom line. So it's a terrific thing. There was one newspaper that said that we cost the United States over $3 billion worth of productivity among the workforce by doing this thing. And if, you know, the United States would like to pay us $2.5 billion, we'll shut it down.
I just want to assure Glenn and Keith that I won't be watching during working hours.
And we do have what some of you may be familiar with, this is true, something called the boss button, where if you are watching a basketball game and you hear your boss wandering down the halls, you can hit a button and a spreadsheet will go on immediately. And you can get that, and we think it saved a lot of jobs, you know.
Okay, well, you also are in the TV business, I hear, and let's talk briefly about the writer's strike.
Okay.
Did you end up learning stuff from the writer's strike about how to do your job more efficiently that's actually going to save you costs in the long run? Talk to us about that.
We did. Look, the writer's strike is unfortunate. We're all glad it's over. It was 100 days of hell financially. We came out fine, you know, lower revenue because of more repeats, but greatly reduced production costs. So bottom line, fine for CBS and the other networks. Having said that, we weren't happy with that. We weren't happy. You know, it was about new media. We were willing to share. The writers feel like they needed the strike to get what they got. We don't want to argue the merits of that. We're happy it's over. We re-examined the system. As we're sitting there with 100 days, with people not having a whole lot to do, we looked at what was good about the system, what was bad about the system. We realized there was excess cost put into the development process with what are called overall deals, where you hire a writer for a lot of money, you have him exclusive, and he sits and writes one script over the course of the year. We decided that was not probably the best way to do business. So we cut over 50% of those deals. We're not making nearly as many full pilots. We're doing what's called presentations, which are half pilots, where you can learn if you got something or not without having to spend $6-7 million on each one of those things. So I think our overall system became much more important and much smarter how we do business. It took an event like this for us to re-examine the process, what we were doing right, what were we doing wrong. You know, unfortunately, there were a lot of people that suffered from it, and there'll be writers that a few years from now will say, gee, I lost more in the strike than I will see in my lifetime. And that's too bad. We don't want that.
Because you cut the writer's deals, right?
Yeah. Right. And there was less work. Look, we did 17 episodes of CSI instead of 24. That's lost money for writers, actors, producers that will never, you know, it's like an airline that leaves with an empty seat.
Yeah.
You never recover that money. You never get that money. Those 7 episodes are gone. We don't have time to do more than that. So that's lost money for them. So it's too bad. Look, labor actions are always too bad. You know, we've gotten through the Directors Guild. We've now gotten through AFTRA. We have SAG coming up, and hopefully that's handled without further stoppage.
Are you still a member of the Screen Actors Guild?
I am, but I'm on honorary withdrawal. So I got to figure out whether I'm allowed to vote. But one of the problems with the actors is you have 12,000 members. I think 8,000 of them made less than $1,000 last year. So those people are going to vote on whether they like the new contract.
Yeah.
Fine, you know. Make sure their new media pieces raises it to 1,001.
Right. Does that have something
we hope it doesn't happen. We really hope it doesn't happen. And look, we're in formal discussions with them, and we hope that it's settled reasonably by both sides.
I mentioned the ratings question in the introduction.
Right.
It looks like, and you can dispute this, but it looks like you're going to fall to number 2 after quite a number of years of being number 1. How big a deal is that? Is that just bragging rights, or is that really?
You are probably right, but I have to put a major asterisk next to this, and I'll tell you why. We haven't had original programming since November 20th. That's a big chunk of time between November and the end of March. So it's really not a fair measurement. In addition, and maybe more significantly, we changed the entire rating systems from a live only to a C3, which means commercial, DVDs, the people who watch commercials. And this is the first year we've done that. So by definition, the numbers are going to be lower. The numbers are somewhat erratic. Yeah, we'll finish number 2, and while we're in repeats, American Idol continues to be a monster. You know, it's a phenomenon. And if somebody would kill that show, I would really appreciate it. But it is a national phenomenon. It continues to do extremely well. And it's tough to compete with it. It just is. It does very well.
While we're on that, I think people would be curious to know, let's say, what are your favorite 3 TV shows?
My favorite
on any network.
On any network?
What you really like best.
Am I allowed to mention our networks?
If it's really one of your top 3.
All right.
Business Week is my favorite magazine.
I'm going to actually mention 3 cable shows. Well, I'll mention more than that.
Okay.
I really love The Sopranos. I thought that was a great show. I like Curb Your Enthusiasm. I like Californication on Showtime, which is ours. I think that's a fabulous show. 2.5 Men, I think, is one of the best shows on television. And I think there are certain shows, because we have a lot of procedural crime dramas, we don't get credit for how good they really are, or how good the acting is. I think Criminal Minds is one of the best shows on television. I think CSI is an underrated show. People don't like shows that are too big a hit in terms of critical acclaim. So I'm very proud of what we have. But I think this is a golden age of television once we get back to full speed. I think everybody has a lot of terrific things going on. There's a lot of great creativity in television. And for all those people that want to write off network television, it's still the best game in town. If you want to reach millions and millions and millions of people, look at your top 10 cable networks. Larry King Live is the highest rated show on CNN. It's watched by 900,000 people. The lowest rated show on CBS is watched by 7 million. The lowest. So cable has done a better job than we have at promoting themselves about how well they're doing. Our own Showtime, which is doing extremely well and is growing in leaps and bounds. Dexter, the highest rated show, is watched by 1.4 million people. So when we moved it to CBS, watched by 6-7 million people, it's a brand new audience for it.
But it is partly trend lines. People, certainly on Wall Street and the industry, look at what's going up and what's going down. The CBS Evening News, for example, had way more viewers than it did when Katie Couric started, and it now has substantially fewer viewers than it had then.
Right.
Last fall, you said you thought the show was great. What do you think of the show now?
I still do. I think qualitatively our show stacks up equally with any of the other 2 shows. Katie lost a lot from what Bob Schieffer had, a lot of the plus 55-year-old men. There were a lot more people that didn't want a woman anchor. I think there's a lot of people who don't want a woman president. And I think that might be an issue. That hasn't quite come out, the extent of that. I think Katie is spectacular. I think she's giving 120%. I love having her on my air. We would do the same thing today as we did then. We tried certain things. Frankly, the average age of the evening news viewer is over 60. We tried to get younger. We tried to do certain things. They were rejected. I think the whole concept of evening news has changed drastically. People get home at 6:30. They already know the name of Elliot Spitzer's friend. Her real name, her fake name, her brother's name. They get that right away. You get that on CNBC right away. So it's a whole different philosophy than when you raced home to see Walter Cronkite at 6:30 at night, or even Tom Brokaw. The world is changing rapidly. We have to change with it. Are we thrilled with Katie's ratings? No. Am I thrilled with the product? Absolutely.
To your point, if people already know what's going on, do they really need a half-hour evening news program on a network?
Very good question. It's a very good question. Look, it's still watched by north of 20 million people, so clearly
You mean combined, the three networks?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be 40 million
Right.
people during the old days, so it is steadily gone downhill, but it still has a significant role. A lot is written about it, Steve. It really means minimally financially. It's more about bragging rights. It's more because people like to write about it. I think there's been more written about Katie's hairstyle than about her news reporting, which has been a little unnerving to us.
Has the network given her enough opportunity to shine on big stories? I don't think she's moderated a debate, to the extent in which she's managed to establish herself as a kind of a big global news figure.
CBS hasn't had a debate yet. There's some possibility we may have one because, fortunately for us, this campaign is going to drag out and it's going to get very dirty, which is very good for us because the more political advertising there is, it helps us. So urge them to keep saying bad things about each other. We actually paid Geraldine Ferrara to say what she said. But no, we didn't. So the longer that goes on, I mean, it's great that Pennsylvania becomes very important. We have stations in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh for television. We have over 10, 12 radio stations. So suddenly a new influx of revenue is coming in there. So that political system helps a great deal. Katie has covered all the big stories. She's gone everywhere. She's gone to primaries. As I said, she's worked 120%. She'll work day and night. She will go anywhere. I like her as much as the other two guys. I'm prejudiced, but I think she's doing great.
Okay. I'd like to read you a quote that Sumner Redstone gave to Maria Bartiromo in Business Week in her FaceTime column. We asked him, it was actually in the context of Evening News, and he said, quote, "Les doesn't make mistakes. I've said time and time again I would support Les in everything he does because he does everything right." That's a pretty good thing to hear from the boss. Is it really quite that idyllic working with Sumner?
Sumner has, I have to tell you, my relationship with Sumner couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. We speak a few times a week. He's aware of what's going on. He has yet to say no to me on anything. I inform him of, we want to make an acquisition. We want to buy Last FM for $300 million. The conversation lasts all of 2 minutes. He has shown me total confidence, and relationship with him is terrific.
Didn't you disagree on your comp package? At least what I read at the time. Sorry, I follow up. I apologize.
Actually, that's not true. That was somebody else, who I won't mention who was trying to make trouble. Sumner was fine with my comp package.
So the notion of tying more of the comp package to the stock price?
No, Sumner urged me to do it because he had done it with his deal. He said, I think that might be a good idea. And my next contract I did. That was in the middle of my last contract. I just renewed my deal in October. And it's a lot more based on RSUs and options than it is on cash.
And that's through 2011, right?
2011. Right. God, that sounds like a long time. Yes.
Let me just switch quickly to radio.
Yes.
Generally speaking, radio revenues have been falling overall, I believe. There are some people who believe radio is in a secular decline. You've sold off a bunch of radio stations, but you also seem very committed to it. And meanwhile, you've got Sirius and XM, which at least most recently, I guess there was some optimism that the merger would go through. So how do you see radio and how do you see satellite as competition?
Mel Karmazin is optimistic about everything. He has been for a long time. We don't view Sirius and XM as a threat. Radio has been down the last 2 years. There are a number of things we have done to change our radio group. We've changed our entire management team. Changed the CEO, the CFO, and the head of sales, the three key guys who I meet with once a week. They are redoing stations throughout the country. They've just redone New York, and the ratings gains have been tremendous. Now, we need the revenue to follow the ratings gain, which it usually does. We need the rating system to change, which is rather antiquated. But where Dan has made programming changes, we have seen significant ratings gains, which we think will lead to much better revenues. On top of that, once again, online. We are now able to stream all our radio stations. Revenue is coming in, and it's starting to grow. It is starting to grow. It's a new revenue source from the same product, once again, which is what our key is. I'm convinced after 2 down years, radio's not going to grow tremendously. We think it could break even. We think it could go up a little bit. There are some who doubt that. We think it'll come up towards the end of the year, and we feel good about our team. We feel good about what they've changed in each market. We need the world to change their opinion of radio. Radio is still unbelievably strong. In addition, this year, for the first time, radio is taking in a decent amount of political advertising. Politicians ignored radio, which we think is rather dumb, especially day of and the day before, as you're driving to the polling place. It's a good idea to hear an ad. It could influence a lot of votes, and we're starting to get that. So I'm encouraged by my team. I'm encouraged by the changes they've made, and there's now organizations in each market. And I'm encouraged by what's happening in politics and in new media, and we think these are all very positive signs that will lead towards a better performance in radio.
And you think it's strategic for you as part of your overall mix?
I do. We're a large media company. I know radio's been out of favor. We think it's underrated. We think people like to dump on radio. And it has struggled. There's no question. It's struggled for the last couple of years. But we think we could change it. Look, as you said, I took over the CBS network when we were 4th heading to 5th. It takes time. It takes time to turn around the boat. We did it. We think we can do it in radio as well.
A small radio digression. You were very vocal when Imus was having his difficulties and was taken off the air. Now he's back on the air in a different place. Do you think he should be back on the air?
Yes. I think Don Imus made a huge mistake. I think he apologized for it. I don't think Don Imus should be denied his ability to earn a living. I think that's inappropriate. I think he suffered enough. He lost his job. He was disgraced. I think he handled us well. He handled the situation as best he could. He made a big mistake. He made a huge mistake. He was punished for it.
But you didn't want him back on CBS?
No, I felt that would be inappropriate.
I want to talk briefly about the music business. That's another business many people find very troubled.
Right.
But you seem to be finding your way into it through Last FM.
Right.
This is, as I understand it, free on-demand music service, and you've got something like 20 million unique users on it now. How do you see that? Is that going to grow a lot? Is it going to be an entree for you to go more broadly into the music business?
It points to an overall concept about online. We like to say that the online, the computer, should not be regurgitated television content, i.e., you shouldn't use your computer necessarily to watch CSI. When you got a 60-inch that you can watch it in HD, it's a much better experience. We think digital and online can be used for other things. And the reason we bought Last FM is not only about the music, but about the community around music. It's about communities around content. So we made deals with the 4 largest record labels where we could put all their stuff online. They get paid for it. The most significant thing is the fact that people talk about this music. And we can sell ads, and we're getting millions of uniques. And we're a content company. So if there can be a community around music, there could be a community around sports, there could be a community around entertainment, right. And the ads are just starting to roll in. The reason it hasn't gotten as big as it has quickly is it's a London-based company. 75% of our traffic is international. Right. So we need to build it up here in the United States and but it's a fabulous site where you can get music, you can share. The record companies are ecstatic because they're going to get paid in a new way for their content. And we're very excited about it. We think this is how the world is heading.
Is it also a play to get more global? Because compared to a lot of successful multinational companies, you're much more domestic.
We're much more domestic, and we would like to expand globally. And that was a great opportunity. It was a great opportunity. And we are looking internationally. We're expanding our outdoor presence internationally, where we're very big. And obviously, we're selling a lot of programming all over the world. And there are new territories like Latin America and Eastern Europe and the Far East that are now opening up. And with the dollar as bad as it is, our international shows are selling for huge amounts of money. So our international businesses are doing very well, partially because of the weakness of the dollar. But it is an area where we would like to expand, and we will.
What is it, about 10% of your revenue now?
It's about 10 or 11% of the revenues international. Yeah.
So when we turn the page on your 3-year or 5-year plan, what's the target?
I'm not giving a number, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was up to 20. So I am giving a number. I lied.
So that's very interesting. I haven't heard that.
That's just,
I haven't heard that before.
I'm just conjecturing. I've never said it before.
Yeah.
Gil, am I allowed to say it? You know, well, whatever. I don't know what it's.
You said it.
It's conjecture. I would like to grow international bigger. I would.
In the brief amount of time we have left, I do want to switch back to film for a moment, because I think some people were a little surprised at your creation of the CBS Film Unit for a couple of reasons. One is you seem to be creeping perhaps back into some of Viacom's areas, and also a lot of people in that business are finding production costs really tough. They're cutting back on production, and you're building into that world. Why are you doing that?
All right. Number one, regarding Viacom, when we split, there was no obligation not to do, and we're starting out doing 4 to 6 movies for under $50 million a year. So while Viacom is doing Transformers and Indiana Jones, you know, which are considerably more than that, we're sort of in a different ballgame. We've looked at the film business, and it took us a while to get going, and there's a number of factors. Number one, without patting myself on the back, I've been involved with more number one television shows than anybody. I think I can do that. I think I can bring that creativity to the motion picture business. I think qualitatively, there's as good a work being done in television as there is in motion pictures. I know there's a great mystery there. I think we could do it. It's about writing and acting and scripts and story. And I think we know how to do that. We also have Showtime. Okay? Showtime has been renting movies for years from the big studios. Suddenly it occurred to me, instead of giving somebody 10 or 12 or $15 million to rent a movie, why not take that money and own the movie? Like renting an apartment or buying a condo. Why not use that chunk of money to give us a head start? So if I'm doing a movie for $35 or $40 million and I have a head start of 15 already, I'm halfway there. Add to that prints and advertising, which we all hear how expensive it is. Now, where does that money go? It goes to radio stations, television stations, and billboards. We are the second largest radio group. We're the largest radio station group, and we're the largest outdoor group. So I can offer my film company, myself, $25 million worth of P&A for $10 million. So suddenly the economics become much, much better. We also started from scratch, and having come out of a studio system, I think a lot of the studios have waste. They do. There's layers upon layers, and some of it's working out. We started a movie company from ground zero. Who do we absolutely need? Let's keep overhead down so the cost of the pictures remains relatively small. I think there's a time and place also where there have been big companies, the mid-sized companies have sort of disappeared. We can fill a niche. We're getting a lot of material from some terrific people. And we're very excited about, and we think the world as we go forward is all about content. And it's another way for us to produce content.
Very short question on book publishing.
Yes.
Seems a little old media for a lot of the stuff you're doing. Is it going to successfully digitize? I think a lot of people are very skeptical about people really ending up reading books on digital readers.
Simon Schuster just had their best year in history last year, growing OIBDA north of 20%. So once again, a supposedly dying business is doing awfully well. And they're off to a great start this year, and I love the publishing business. Yes, we're taking their 17,000 titles, we're digitizing them. So if the Kindle takes off and those types, if the world changes, that will be great for us. We're rooting for all of them, but we love having it. Yes, is there a lot of synergy? Probably not, although our film company just bought a book by Simon & Schuster from Vince Flynn. We combined that. It worked out really well. So we look at publishing the way it's performing as a great asset to have. It's prestigious. I like being in the publishing business. I like having David McCullough being part of the family.
Okay. Let's talk about your future. Your contract is till 2011. Do you have thoughts about what you intend to do when you're done with this?
Yeah, play golf.
Okay.
Not really. You know what? I've been a company guy. I've basically had two jobs most of my life. Lorimar, Warner Brothers for a big chunk, and CBS. I like the company. I like the people. I think our staff is magnificent. I think we have all-stars both in the corporate suite and in the division head suite. I really like what we've built here. I'm not looking for anything beyond what I'm doing now. I'm having a great time. I think it's a great company. I think the future is very bright for CBS. So beyond that, I'm not really thinking very much.
Do you have political interests? Because I know you're kind of barred because you also run CBS News from being active in politics, and my sense is that you actually have a lot of political passion. Is that something that you might?
I do have political passion. Judging what happens, I don't want people looking back in my closet. No,
what's there?
I'm very happily married. Don't start rumors. I just was making a joke. Everything is good. No, you know what? I have done very well in these jobs. They have paid me very handsomely. I do believe in public service. I believe it's very important. I think one of the tragedies about Washington is that we haven't necessarily attracted the best and the brightest. And maybe the right way is for people to go into private business and then return to government to give back at that point, as opposed to the young Turks who are looking to make a name but find it necessary to take politics as a stepping stone to get out the other way. I would like to give something back to society. That might be a way. I have certain friends who are in or have been in powerful places, and I might be willing to aid in that cause a little bit down the line.
You mentioned that some people don't think there should be a woman anchor, and you obviously think there should be a woman anchor. Does it follow that you also think there should be a woman president?
If you're asking me to make an endorsement right now, I'm not going to do it, because I do run the news division, and I've already been accused, even though I have nothing to do with it, of being biased in the CBS News coverage. So I think we have three very strong candidates, and I wish them all well, and I hope they spend a fortune between now and November.
Do you have any predictions about likely outcome of the race?
I'm not. Yeah. I do in my head, but nothing that I would ever mention here.
Okay. But I think we've covered most of your businesses. The one that we haven't talked about that I just will make the last question because, again, it's sports related and interesting and related to what's going on now. There's some hints that you might be going after ESPN because you bought the College Sports Network. I think what you call it now is CSTV? CBS College Sports Television. And what's interesting about it is not only does it do college sports on TV, but you also are managing something like 200 college sports websites. And looking at that, it looks like it's, and I was playing around with them yesterday, and it looks like pretty much everything you can get on ESPN, you're seeing there, at least in the college arena. Is this a bigger push into competition with ESPN? CBS Sports is a very, very big part of our company. They have the NFL football, they have the NCAA tournament, they're the biggest golf provider, has two of the majors. We have the U.S. Open tennis tournament. College sports is an opportunity for us to meld all the college production we have, including the NCAA basketball tournament. I don't think ESPN is for sale today or ever will be for sale. It's doing extremely well, and I don't think Bob Iger would ever sell ESPN. So it hasn't even come up about acquiring it. We love the hand we're dealt. We made a lot of money on football this year. It had a great year. Our sales are just about finished, as I said, on the NCAA tournament. We're going to do very well on that as well. We like our sports portfolio, and we like what we have right now. Great. Well, I think the music's starting, so we'll have to end it. And thank you very much. Thanks to Leslie Moonves. My pleasure. Thank you. That was fun.